My name is Victor Hayes. As the owner of several waste management companies, I am known as the Garbage King. I was married to Sarah Morgan, a lawyer who kept her maiden name for her professional life. Evidently, her whole life was professional, as she made no effort to present herself in social settings with anything other than her maiden name. My occupation in waste management was fine with her when I was paying for her expensive law school costs. After several years of working as a paralegal, she realized she was as sharp as most of the lawyers she worked for. Even though I owned several successful companies and made more money than most of the godlike barristers she worked with, Sarah started looking down on me as second class soon after she got a job with a law firm. When the late nights, diminished intimacy, and increased disrespect spiked over several weeks, I suspected she had started an affair. Since gods don't mate with common folk, I assumed she was seeing one or more of her fellow lawyers. I quickly decided I needed proof that would withstand legal scrutiny. If I just divorced her, she would have gotten half of my business and considerable wealth. If I could get proof of her infidelity with another lawyer, I could probably sue her agency. The law firm would likely pay quite a bit to avoid embarrassment and possible loss of clients. Therefore, I might make enough to compensate for what I would have to give her in the divorce. My logic may have been faulty, but that's what I based my actions on. Sarah's office had an annual Christmas party every year. Sarah invited me, and every year I declined, until this year. She was shocked and immediately tried to come up with reasons for me to stay home. There won't be anyone there for you to talk to, just a bunch of lawyers bragging about their billing hours. Do you really want to sit and hear that all night? I don't care, I said, as long as I'm with you. What I was really thinking was that I wanted to keep an eye on her and see if I could figure out who her lover was. Almost every day before the party, Sarah would mention another excuse I could give to back out, but I didn't fall for it. I told her I was looking forward to going to the party, even as she was getting ready the night of the gala event. She tried one last time. I hate to see you have a miserable time. Are you sure you want to go? Yes, dear. I knew her problem wasn't that my physical appearance was embarrassing to her. I had been told I was fairly handsome and in good shape, and my suit was Armani. I was no slob. I just worked with garbage. She didn't like it when I pointed out that that's what she did too. We arrived at the party with the second wave of people who were trying to be fashionably late. The post tables were already full, but we soon found one near the dance floor where only one other couple had settled so far. We took our seats, and I offered to get drinks for Sarah and myself. My first confrontation of the night occurred while I was standing in line to get our beverages. A man who appeared to be one of the lawyers with the firm said, "I don't believe I've met you before." "Who are you here with?" I answered. "My wife, Sarah Morgan Hayes." "Sarah? I didn't think she was still married," he replied. "Yeah, we've been married happily for 8 years. Of course, we've been married for over 10 years. He looked stunned for a second and then started laughing, assuming it was a joke. That proved to me that truth is often funnier than fiction. On more than one occasion, I overheard the label Garbage King used in conjunction with my nearby presence. Their comments were usually followed by snarky laughter. I wasn't really that upset. I had assumed correctly in previous years how I would be treated by these snobs. I was considered lower class, if not gutter-level scum. I watched as Sarah mingled with various lawyers, paralegals, secretaries, and their spouses or dates for the evening. At the table, she spoke politely with the others seated with us during the meal. When the dancing started, I decided to give it a try. I asked my wife to dance, but she looked like she could barely tolerate being seen with me. I didn't care. I tried to dominate the slow dances, but before long, I was cut in on several times, and she managed to accept several invitations from other lawyers for both fast and slow dances. I gave up and just sat back to watch her even more closely. About an hour after the dancing started, a middle-aged, distinguished-looking man came up to our table. He only looked at Sarah. Unlike most others, he did not ask my permission. He was claiming her more than asking her to dance. Sarah's face lit up when she saw him, and she eagerly accepted, standing up without ever looking at me for approval. I thought, we may have a winner. My focus was entirely on them as I observed their slow dance. There was enough in her body language to feed my suspicion, but nothing overt enough to warrant a picture that would be damning. Was my hunch sufficient proof of their being lovers? Luckily, I had another source of information, an unusual one. I had never told Sarah that I had been recruited out of college by the CIA due to my highly accurate skill in reading lips. I had several successful covert missions and was being trained in lip-reading a Middle Eastern foreign language. However, my time in the CIA didn't last long, as one of those infamous whistleblowers blew my cover along with everyone else in my section. I wasn't interested in a desk job, so I left the company. I stood up and positioned myself to see what Sarah was saying to her dance partner. Most of the time, I wasn't able to see his face. Here's what I saw. "Sarah, did you get the room for tonight?" "Yes, I just put it in his drink a few minutes ago." I can't believe you planned for us to make love in the same room my husband is sleeping in. That is so naughty and dangerous. Don't worry about me. I promised you you'll get it. Oh, Stanley, I am so ready. That was enough for me. I immediately spilled the rest of the drink on myself and the table. I excused myself and took off toward the restrooms. I passed the restroom and headed for the exit. I was hoping I had not taken enough of the drug to be affected yet, or that it wasn't a strong dosage. I was wrong on both counts. Beeping monitors, bright lights, and alcohol smells were my greeting back to consciousness. It appeared I had a car wreck when I fell asleep at the wheel driving home from the party. I looked around and saw a nurse. I was about to ask her a question when I saw Sarah come into the room. I immediately sat up and yelled, "Get that out of here!" Sarah ran out of the room. Once she left, I was still yelling, "She's the one who almost got me killed. I want to talk to a policeman now." The nurse tried to calm me down. The medical staff assumed I was having some kind of psychotic episode. I calmed down and told them, "I'll try to explain this in terms you can understand. I will sue you personally and the hospital in general if you do not get a policeman here in the next 15 minutes. I have been drugged. Do a toxicology screen for liquid Benadryl and other knockout drugs. I think my wife and her lover almost got me killed." I exaggerated what I knew of the situation, but it worked. Within 15 minutes, a police officer was taking my statement that I had overheard my wife and her lover talking about drugging me and taking my body off somewhere so they could be intimate. I didn't mention that I had heard it by lip reading. I figured drugging and attempted kidnapping ought to stir some action. I was told I needed to come to the police station after I left the hospital to swear out a complaint. I told them I would unless I got kidnapped or killed by them. When I left the hospital, the officer didn't seem particularly concerned for my safety. While I waited to be discharged, a nurse came in to tell me the results of the toxicology report. I had been drugged big time. In fact, based on the amount of drugs in my system, if I had drunk the full glass, it would likely have killed me. The hospital staff had reported that to the police already. I heard the phrase "attempted murder" for the first time. Before long, a policeman was stationed outside my door, and the second officer who interviewed me was more serious in her interest. I went home when I was discharged the next day. A police car passed my house on a regular basis. However, I was not in danger. Sarah was not in our house. Just all her stuff was. I found out that Sarah had been arrested earlier at our house. She and her lover had come here in hopes of convincing me not to tell the law firm about their scheduled tryst in the hotel. That was the only crime they thought they had committed. She and Stanley were charged, however, with attempted murder. I imagine she collapsed when she heard the charge as the police put her in handcuffs. The two lawyers, as you might expect, refused to speak without another lawyer. The district attorney wanted to try the two separately. He thought if Sarah saw she was going to be convicted, she would testify against Stanley, her lover, and a junior partner with the firm. The only problem was Stanley thought he could use the same defense by claiming I had seduced her and that they were having an affair because of my seductive behavior. He didn't testify against her either. In the end, the two of them stood trial together. And when she didn't testify against him, it was his claim of being forced to engage in sexual conduct with her as a defense that caused him to get acquitted. She did end up getting convicted of attempted murder, and her sentence was quite long. When she got out of prison, I hired a lawyer to help me finalize the divorce. I had assumed she would become an inconsequential memory, but instead, she used her time behind bars to grow her reputation in prison as a brilliant lawyer. I've been told she got her law degree while incarcerated. The court ruled in my favor, and I kept all my assets, including my company's. I also discovered I was on the way to becoming a millionaire. My company was being investigated for suspected criminal activity that my soon-to-be ex-wife had been investigating for her firm. Sarah claimed the reason for her marriage problems was my shady dealings. There were no shady dealings to be found, but there were enough allegations against my wife and her lover to keep me tied up in court for years to come. I think of her every time I see a truck carrying garbage. I hope that the garbage she left behind will soon be forgotten.